In case some of you were falling asleep. Actually, I'll probably start with asking you if you have any questions. Anybody? No questions? What's up?
Some meetings that for example, there is a workshop on localization for first responders that happens every year for the past 6-7 years at Bursa Polytechnic Institute. And over there you see representatives from industry, from user groups. There has been clearly stated that we need such a standard because there is quite a bit of confusion. Every year we see this, and every year they say, okay, should we go for 1 foot accuracy? Some people say we need 1 foot accuracy. Some people say something else. But even before, when you talk about this, they have realized that you need a way of measuring performance before you even, these numbers do not mean anything if you don't have a good, consistent way of measuring these things. So there have been requests for that. In the context of mining, the same thing. We had there was a meeting recently, and representatives from industry were there, from standardization groups, from other people. And one of the things that came from this meeting was a need for this sort of thing. So those are a couple of examples of the demand for this.
Professor Palwa?
One question that I had from the beginning was that you're talking about indoor geolocation for commercial application. Now we're talking about maps, data, which is collected, and location of access points. What type of standardization really is needed for that, to your opinion, to allow these multiplicity of people who are collecting the data, they're collecting the map, to cooperate with one another and make a better life for users?
Okay, I think there's a lot of dimensions to that question. So, there's already map standards, and so we shouldn't redesign anything there. There's standardized formats for expressing floor plan. So it's just a question of getting them into the indoor positioning infrastructure. So I think you can do that today with Google allows for this to be uploaded. A lot of companies allow it to be uploaded. So, really I think it's just a transport protocol using existing formats. So that's not something you would do, it's not something I talked about. It wouldn't be in LPPE, it wouldn't be in SUPL, which is a protocol between the mobile and the server. So it'd be some kind of back-end infrastructure. This is something the OCG could do, it's something the IETF could do, but I think it's just a basic transport program.
I think in my case, actually, I had a very, very simple question I raised to some of my students. We have these maps of different floors of application laboratory, digital laboratory, data. 3 floors, we have 3 maps. And we wanted to bring them up so that when the students are coming in, at least they can just get it done. So they send it to Google like 2-3 months ago, no result. Now they are trying to have it with other companies. Still we have no result. I think one thing that users in particular need is like that. I have like a map, just a scan. I want to just put it on the web because people come to my store, to my campus, they want to find anything in that regard, that just any sort of map, like a scan map, PDF map, can be used. Or can be accessed with other people.
I personally think we shouldn't get too carried away with adding more formats, right? There are well-defined formats, so we should try to start with them. If every donut shop in the world is just faxing in a hand drawing of their building, I think that's not very scalable.
What can you do about it? Because at the end, I think the maps are not going to produce by like putting anything to use it. It's going to be like just access point. Each person puts access point wherever they want. Maps, yeah, somebody sketches. So this is my map. What I want it to be in the net. Somebody comes to my home, knows where to go, for example, or somebody comes to my campus. But that's my choice. I put it on the hand sketch. But there should be a mechanism for people to retrieve it automatically, I think.
Well, for the access points, we can obviously crowdsource, right? So one of the problems you'll see is that a venue might upload or provide to the service provider the list of the access points and their locations, but that's coming from maybe IT management, and IT management told real estate construction to install them, and those individuals saw that there was a conference going in, and instead of installing them here, they installed them across the hallway, right? And then they didn't feed that back to the process. So through crowdsourcing, I think we can correct the location of the access points, but if somebody throws up a drywall, after the maps have been updated, then that's a little more complicated.
So I think that's what is coming to. Like, people should have private ownership of those maps and location, and they have to be responsible for recovery. Just like internet, I create like a website, and then 10 years later, it may be there, and even I don't know about it. The same would be about the maps I think, and about the location of access. But somebody should pursue that at least. Is there any persuasion on that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any. This is probably more of like a, maybe a handwriting recognition standard or something, not a location standard. So, not my area of expertise.
Steve, would you like to add something?
I don't think I've got very much more to add. It's just I'm also concerned about the accuracy and and how long things stay accurate. There's a certain point where things are so out of date that they're practically disinformation, and they're maybe worse than being used. So that we might be concerned.
But I think your point is that if the venue owner is interested in providing a good service, and that's a theme I think we heard a couple times today, they'll have to invest the time and the energy. You want a certain baseline foundation for the venue operator not having to do much other than providing some kind of floor plan and some kind of information about the location of the access points, and that should give you some baseline, 10-meter accuracy or something, right? If you want to fine-tune it, then they maybe have to deploy more access points. They need to be careful about reporting them at their exact location, and yet they should make sure that the floor plan is as accurate as possible and keep it current over time. So I do think that you'll see standards that allow venues to automate the uploading of this to service providers, right? With a limited set of formats, probably.
Cheryl?
I'll just add a little bit. There's ISO Technical Committee 211 that has standards on GIS aspects of localization and location-based services. So there might be some activities in that space.
What we heard today a lot was how standardization can help in delivering the service between different entities that there are related in the delivery of services. Now, my question is this. If standardization in the future can help to create new technologies or adjust a new hardware, for instance, or create new hardware, to be more specific, RSS, which was now we are using, for instance, for location-based services, it's not really was meant to be there. It is a byproduct of the chipset that exists there. We did not design the chipset to read the power points. Now, this is standardization. Is it going to create new ways of designing chipsets for future handsets?
Yeah, well, I think it is, because sort of if you look at the history, location was always like an afterthought. When you look at the GSM standard when they first did it, they weren't thinking location, and when they sort of forced location into that standard and used what was available. And as time's progressed, the latest standards, for example, LTE, they thought all about location straight away as part of the design. So I think location is much more prevalent now, and I become location enabled.
Yeah, I mean, and that's LTE is the perfect example, right? So AFLT is the forward link ranging of the CDMA pilot. So it was an afterthought, so to speak, of how could I range to the CDMA base station? Hey, I'll take the pilot. It's just there. It's easy to, read that energy. But in LTE, they didn't do that from the core cellular infrastructure. They created a positioning referencing. So each base station, these base stations are provisioned to send, these pulses just for the purposes of positioning and the mobile side is, hardware and software design is specifically meant for the ranging. So it's not deployed yet, so only time will tell, but OT2A is supposed to, be, as good or superior to AFLT. So I think you'll see more and more of that. On the wireless LAN side, there's a lot of opportunities to define more and more measurements. I think that's where we got the 802.11b and K and N standards way back when they were looking at some of these things, and we're starting to now see the implementation.
I actually have one last, I don't know whether it's a question or a point, but Ted was talking about working with the venue owners to get information in a standardized format. Now, as an operator, I'm always concerned about the fact that I have provided a device to my users and it doesn't work. And they think that it's because I have a problem, but it might be very well be a problem that, the information which is there provided is not correct, right? So I'm just wondering whether there should be a standardized way for creating these aisles and all that, right? You're looking at aisles and everybody does it their own way, So maybe there should be a standardized way of, what do you think?
Well, there's a certain point where you could have some kind of agreement, like, if you provide this information, it will be accurate, it will be up to date. There's some kind of service level agreement potential between, an operator like Verizon and whether they'll take that information and use it reliably. There could be practically a legal agreement that the information will be kept up to date and you'll be provided with appropriate updates.
So Ted, is that something in the works?
Well, I think it's early in this process, but certainly I think if the venue owner is going to demand some rights over the data, they also have some responsibilities to make it as accurate as possible. I think it goes both ways.
True, but then at the end of the day, by the time my user gets to know about it, there's already been a lot of fuss. A lot of executive VPs are running around, saying, what's wrong?
Yeah, the lines definitely blur. If you take today, let's just take, let's say, GPS and AFLT technology, and I download some Android application on my phone, I can probably more easily separate, whether I'm getting good content in terms of it's telling me where the Starbucks is versus, the actual geographic position's wrong, right? I can kind of separate, well, it's the device, and it's the carrier versus it's the Android app that I downloaded or the particular website I'm going to get the information. But yeah, it blurs a little bit when you get to indoor type positioning and there's, now venue specific,
Right.
Information that's not, but both the information to the consumer, but it's also part of the systems data, the positioning as well. So I do think it's going to blur a little bit, and I think it's going to be one of the challenges.
Yep, real challenge. And another, we spent a lot of time in Verizon Wireless writing, as certainly Kirk and Frank are aware of. Spent a lot of time writing test plans, and certainly, and I've had a lot of discussions with Farshid about, in GPS it's fine because GPS is well defined, but testing anything like Wi-Fi or sensors, next challenges will be a real challenge. I'd like to talk to you, about.
I should add that in order to participate in this standardization activity, companies or institutions need to join the US TAC, Technical Activities Group, which happens to be AIM. AIM Global is you become a member of AIM, and then you are part of the US delegation, and then of course you can participate. And we welcome participation by the more the merrier, and the end result will be better. So that would be the way to participate.
Thank you.
Definitely a good synergy discussion in the standards, because for AFLT, LTDA, and GPS, you have minimum performance, it's
Right,
under 3
right.
GP, but you get into Wi-Fi, Google phone service.
Right, great.
Correctness of indoor information coming from the users, because that argument can go against anything that you provide to users. Any application which provides Starbucks location might be wrong, GPS location might be wrong, and indoor location coming from like the company might be wrong. So there's that problem.
You're right. See, in the case of GPS or anything with wireless, wide area network, related thing, we can actually, it's easier to test, and also it's well defined, right? Like GPS is based on, the whole thing is based on fairly well defined algorithms, so we can figure it out. But Wi-Fi. Location, for example, is very dependent, or even anything indoor is very dependent upon the venue, right? So whereas GPS, I think, is more generalized. It's based on the shape of the Earth, essentially. Correct. Right. And the shape of the Earth also, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Simple.
Right. That's why, So there's a philosophical difference, and it translates into practice. And you and I, we had discussions about how do you test Wi-Fi really, right? Localization. So. Thank you very much. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, just to follow up on that, I think it's very important that whenever when you use a particular source of location, whether it be a Wi-Fi access point or whatever, you use ancillary information to just validate that. So if you also have the cellular location, the cell ID or something, and the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi information you're getting is saying that it's a city, 100 miles away, then obviously there's maybe something wrong with the Wi-Fi stuff. So I think the key thing is that all the time you validate all your information, and when you identify there's a problem with, or a potential problem with any information, that you tag it that way, and then hopefully to say, once there is some bad information in the system, that it gets tagged that way, and very quickly you can stop using that information.
Thanks.